In this version of Pokemon, everything is fused with a legendary. So, instead of a bug catcher just having Caterpie, now they'll have a Caterpie that's been fused with a random legendary to make a whole new Pokemon. Every trainer in the game has had their teams fused, leading to some hilarious and cursed combinations, as well as making the game significantly harder. So, I played through this entire game to see just how absurd and difficult this would get. Here's how it went. The game begins with us choosing our starter, and for our legendary infused starters, our choice is between these: a Mewtwo Charmander, a Groudon Bulbasaur, or a Dialga Squirtle. All three of these fusions look awesome. Let me know which combination you'd be choosing in the comments below. But for me, while I would love to have a Bulbasaur equipped with a Volcano, or this Temu and Polion here, my small, smooth brain just can't ignore a fusion of Mewtwo and Charmander. So, with Mewmander secured, we have our first fusion, a Fire Psychic type with a huge special attack stat. And our new Mewmander was about to immediately be put to the test, as we have our first battle against our rival, Blue. Turns out, he chose the literal walking volcano, Growlsaur. While Charmander would usually have a big type advantage over Bulbasaur, with these fusions, it's a much harder matchup since Growlsaur is a poison ground type. All I can do here is try to hit it with Psywave, and while it is super effective, the damage is pretty pathetic before Blue hits me with a Mudshot that completely cripples my Mewmander. This also drops my speed, meaning that on the following turn, Growlsaur moves first, hitting us with an ancient power that crushes Mewmander into the dirt, handing me my first loss. Yeah, I can already tell that this game is going to be absolutely insane. Despite that loss, we're still able to proceed, exiting out of Pallet Town onto Route 1. And it doesn't take long for us to find our first trainer battle. Although, Last Mimi here is packing the buffest looking Pidgey I have ever seen in my life. And once again, we are completely outmatched here, as Mewmander is quickly decimated by Dragon Breaths. Which means, yeah, I lost against both my rival and the very first trainer of the game. I fear we may be in trouble here. See, while Charmander gets a massive stat boost thanks to being fused with a legendary, all of our opponents also get stat buffs too. Clearly, this makes things incredibly dangerous, and I knew that before trying to tackle that dreaded Pidgey again, my only option was to train up my Mewmander. Thankfully, the wild Pokemon in this game aren't fused with legendaries, so it doesn't take too much time for us to get some extra levels. And once at level 7, our Mewmander can now take on the dreaded Route 1 trainer, as a few confusions are all we need to claim our revenge, meaning that we had finally actually won a battle in this game. With that accomplishment, next we're headed for Pewter City to try and obtain our first gym badge. Due to every trainer having legendaries, we gain EXP really quickly, although this game has level caps built in, which thankfully prevents me from over-leveling. The bug types of Viridian Forest aren't much of a threat since we have a fire type Mewtwo, whose embers utterly annihilate the local bug catchers. However, during this, we do get to see some ridiculous combinations, like Weesect, the most terrifying Weedle I've ever laid eyes on, as well as Katarina. Even as a dragon from the underworld, Caterpie still looks pretty pathetic. Regardless, after Mewmander had committed mass arson against the local bug catchers, we emerge out the other side of Viridian Forest and move onwards towards Pewter City. This is where our first gym is waiting, but this raises a problem. See, Brock is going to be carrying 2 rock-type legendary fusions, which means that our lonesome fire-type starter is going to be at a huge disadvantage here. So you might be wondering, how will we get more legendary fusions? Well, in this mod, our PC is full of random legendary eggs. So the way this works is this. I'll get 1 random egg to start with, which I can then fuse with any regular Pokemon I can find. After that, I'll unlock a new random egg after every gym battle, giving me access to more fusions as the game goes on. So, for my first egg, I just grabbed this one out of the middle and started sprinting my little heart out all across Pewter City. This took a really long time, and my character was basically running in the Pewter City Marathon. But after a long cardio session, our egg finally hatches into Celebi. This is a great Pokemon to pull, since the first two gyms are both weak against grass. So I then set out to try and find a suitable Pokemon to fuse with Celebi. I really didn't want to use any of the early game bugs or flying types, since that would make us weak to Brock and his rock types. Eventually though, to the west of Viridian City, I was able to find Mankey. And after catching this guy, we fuse our two new Pokemon into Manby. This may look like a harmless pixie piglet, but Manby is a solid grass fighting type, which makes it a very nice addition for the next gym. With our second fusion now recruited, I quickly trained up Manby to the level cap and returned to Pewter City, ready to take on the first gym leader. So the battle against Brock begins and... oh my god! Geodude! What have they done to you? Against this goofy looking Phoenix, I lead with Mewmander, and we actually get really lucky here, because not only does our first attack leave Geo confused, it also then hits itself, giving us the first KO without taking any damage whatsoever. This brings Brock down to his final Pokemon, Groundnix. This thing looks insane. Somehow, Groundnix looks way more terrifying than even Groudon does. This fusion keeps Onix's ground rock typing, so I continue using Confusion, but this does way less damage to Groundnix. So we're not able to finish it off before Mewmander is smacked into its grave by a second super effective ancient power. This leaves us with only the Flying Pig, who is now left to single-handedly deal with this nightmare fuel behemoth. Thankfully though, our grass fighter has a great matchup here. Manby can tank an ancient power really well before one last karate chop is all we need to crush Groundnix into the dirt. With that, the dreaded rock snake had been slain, and we had earned our very first badge. After the fight, Brock also gives us a drying pan, which I will absolutely be wearing from now on. With our first gym badge now obtained, this challenge is all about making your Pokemon stronger by finding the right fusion. But when it comes to running your business, you can make it stronger by combining it with Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one software tool designed to help you run your own business. See, most businesses use several different pieces of software to manage things like accounting, sales, and inventory. This can be very expensive and time-consuming to manage so many different platforms. But with Odoo, everything is brought under one roof. Not only is this more affordable, it's also simpler. Since Odoo's apps are easily integrated, they'll communicate with each other automatically. For example, when a purchase is made, Odoo will automatically log the transaction in your accounting app and monitor your stock levels to ensure you can fulfill the order. If your inventory is running low, Odoo will then automatically generate a purchase order to help you restock. And this is only really scratching the surface. From managing projects to manufacturing and CRM, there's so much that Odoo can do, and it's all in one easy, centralized location. So, to find out more about how you can make it easier to run your business, check out Odoo by clicking the link in the description. Your first app is free forever, so you can try out Odoo with no risk and experience firsthand how much stronger your business can be by fusing it with Odoo. While we may have gotten our win there against Brock on our first attempt, I expected this game to get much harder over time. Regardless, now we're clear to move east from Pewter City. Since we've now earned a gym badge, I make sure to grab our next legendary egg from the PC so we can get started on hatching it before setting out from Pewter City. This next route has a lot of trainers and a lot of new fusions, like Catados, which I think proves once and for all that anything fused with Caterpie just becomes goofy and harmless. After Mewmander continues burning its way through bug types, our starter finally evolves into Mewmelian, a Charmeleon with a Mewtwo-shaped head that, more importantly, gets a nice little power boost. Moving along this route, it's also here that we find one of the coolest fusions of the entire game so far, Pikaquaza. Not only does this thing look sick, it even has little Pikachu hands. In another timeline, this right here would be the Pokemon mascot that we all love. After leaving yet another pile of bug trainers in our wake, we eventually make it to Mount Moon. Once inside, we still have to chase down Team Rocket, but their plan in this game is all about trying to achieve a three-way Pokemon fusion. Once we track them down inside this cave, their fusion experiment fails, causing them to flee and clearing us to pick up our Helix fossil. On top of that though, Mount Moon also has some other interesting additions, like this little Rattata. It's so cute, like an adorable little baby Raikou. But I wonder what happens if we flip the fusion. Oh god, no! Go back to the other one! Quick, kill it! This cave also has some other horrors waiting inside, like Cataretta, who is staring deeply into my soul like it wants me bad, as well as Ektu. I don't know why Ekans is biting Mewtwo like that, but I'm scared and I think I need an adult. Finally, Mount Moon now has a new little area, which, most importantly, is where we can buy a set of wearable Clefairy ears. Now we're really dressed like a gamer. Anyway, with new Pokemon-related trauma and some new headwear, we finally exit Mount Moon, bringing us to our next destination of Cerulean City. Once we arrive, since we have some difficult fights coming up, I decided to once again start sprinting around so that we can hatch our next egg. And after a while, this time I got Articuno. So I had to find something worthwhile to fuse our new bird with. And while it would be funny to have a flying rat or an ice-type Poliwag, ultimately there's one other Pokemon I had in mind, Cleffa. Because by fusing these two together, we create this, a little flying Kirby that is honestly so adorable. Although it doesn't stay this cute for long, as our new Artifa quickly evolves into its middle stage, Clefkuno. And after tracking down an evolution stone from inside Mount Moon, Clefkuno evolves again, this time into Clefkuno. Again. Don't be fooled though. Clefkuno might look like a malnourished pink chicken, but this is a deceptively strong Pokemon. It's pretty bulky, and its fairy flying typing complements our team really nicely. So, with one of the strangest Pokemon teams of all time now assembled, we were ready to head north of Cerulean. This all starts with a rematch against our rival, the man who absolutely crushed my Mewmander back in Oak's lab. While his team has some scary new additions, ours does too. This fight is still really close, but our Clefkuno absolutely clutches up, with Ice Shard finishing off the evolved Grousor and taking care of the new Abra Mew fusion that follows after that. Without Clefkuno, we definitely would have lost that fight, but it's pretty clear that our rival is going to be a menace once he gets more evolutions. After Blue takes off, we have to make our way to Bill's house, and there are a lot of trainer battles along the way. None of these are overly challenging, but they do present us with some of the cutest fusions so far, like Suish here, who I would honestly give my life for, as well as Rayans, who is literally just a cute baby Rayquaza. I really wish this little guy was an actual Pokemon form. My Rattata is different from regular Rattata, it's in the top percent. Ugh, come on, it's just a Rattata. How deadly could it really be? Oh my god, kill it, quick! Kill it with fire before it breeds! Anyway, after a gauntlet of battles, we finally make it to Bill's house, where we get our ticket for the SSN, as well as raid his closet to steal this fresh Pikachu onesie. With all that taken care of, now that we're dressed for combat, we can return to Cerulean City to hunt down our second badge. However, the gyms in this game only let you bring an equal number of Pokemon to the gym leader. And since Misty only has a team of 2, we have to choose one Pokemon to bench. But given that our Mewmelian is weak to water, it's a pretty simple choice to leave our starter on the bench. So, with our remaining duo in tow, we charged into Misty's gym, ready to earn our second badge. Hey Misty, how do you feel about a man in a Pikachu onesie? Ew, no. Then how about a man in Clefairy ears? Gross. You look like that creep, Bill. Fine then, what about my drying pan? Here's my number. The fight begins as Misty leads with her Celadine, making this a Celebi on Celebi showdown. Thankfully though, hers isn't a grass type, which gives us a massive type advantage, as 2 magical leaps quickly give us the first KO. Misty then follows up with her ace, Rayu. A fusion of Staryu and Rayquaza, which is a lot deadlier than it looks. After hitting it with Leech Seed, Rayu deals big damage with Twister, ultimately crushing Mambi within a few turns. This leaves us with only Clefkuno. Things start to look very dangerous after Misty then hits us with a super effective Ancient Power and heals up with a Super Potion. However, the chip damage and recovery from Leech Seed helps to give us the edge, allowing Clefkuno to survive long enough to finish the fight with Gust. If that Staryu was evolved, we probably would have lost there. But thankfully, our legendary fusions had secured the win, as well as our second badge. With Misty now defeated, after collecting my next legendary egg from the PC, now we're clear to begin moving forward towards Vermilion City. Along the way, we find some more incredibly cute baby legendary fusions, as well as more cool Pikachu combinations, and it doesn't take too long for us to reach Vermilion City. Besides the usual items that can be found here, Infinite Fusion also introduces new content like side quests, in-game trades with NPCs, as well as the option to buy some very interesting new outfits. The SSN has also had a bit of a makeover, including an extra side quest that requires us to dress up like a maid and serve customers in a restaurant. My favorite Pokemon is Drowsy. FBI? Check this man's hard drives and add him to the list at once. There are a lot of battles on this boat, and some of them have some pretty wild fusions. But none of them are as crazy as the fight against our rival, because this time, he has a Kadabra Mewtwo that literally just looks like Frieza. I could have sworn I heard this thing call me a Saiyan monkey when it came out of its Pokeball. Regardless, after beating our rival, we take the cut HM from the Sea Captain and steal his hat just to rub it in. With that, now we can leave the SSN behind and take on the third gym. While training up, our Manbee finally evolves into Prime Bee. It's still an angry little pig, but now it's just much more menacing. On top of that, the legendary egg we got for beating Misty also hatches, giving us our newest legend, Kyogre. This thing is a beast, and probably one of the best legendaries in the game. Although, you might think this is a bad pull, since the next gym leader specializes in electric types. However, I have a plan for that, because I intend to fuse our new Kyogre with Diglett, or more specifically, the Doug trio that it quickly evolves into. By combining these two Pokemon, we create the abomination known as Kyo Trio, a three-headed Kyogre that now has an added ground type, making it completely immune to electric attacks. With this new addition to the team, now we were ready to take on the third gym. And while it might not seem like a good idea to wear a metal drying pan on your head inside the electric gym, thankfully, our Kyo Trio makes this completely safe, as our new legendary fusion just keeps on spamming Mud Bomb, which rips right through Surge's entire roster, including his very cursed looking Pikachu. This results in our most dominant fight so far, earning us our third badge in no time at all. After leaving the gym, I decided to spend some time doing side quests. And while these aren't crucial to the overall plot, it does give us access to some extra Pokemon, as well as the ability to revive some of our fossils. Although the most important thing I unlocked is the ability to put hats on Pokemon. I didn't know that I needed this in my life, but I absolutely did. I mean, you can't deny that giving these two a hat makes them infinitely cooler. During this time, the legendary egg I got for beating Surge also hatched into Cresselia, so I temporarily decided to fuse it with our Ormanite, mostly because of how cursed this thing looks. So, with one of the strangest looking Pokemon teams of all time, we then began moving forward by cutting through the trees and heading east of Cerulean. After quickly moving through the trainers here, we eventually arrive at the Rock Tunnel, and this place has some of the most absurd fusions so far, like G-Puff, who looks like a Jirachi that used Wish to wish for 100 hamburgers. It's also here that we get to encounter the mighty Hotang. I don't know what that Hotang does, but I think it's dangerous to try and find out. Anyway, after eventually exiting the Rock Tunnel, now we had entered the Pokemon Infinite Fusion mid-game. While we're still encountering some cursed and downright absurd fusions, our team had built up some momentum and we were able to move through the next section of the game relatively quickly. For example, in the Celadon gym, we get treated to witnessing some absolutely horrendous fusions of Bellsprout, although none of them scare me quite as much as the new Mega Victory Bell. But when it comes to the gym fight against Erica, our newly evolved Muzard is really strong here, clearing through her first two Pokemon no problem. And after the rest of our team gradually wears down Erica's ace, we had earned a comfortable 4th badge. We were cruising through the gym challenge and were now on our way to earning the next badge. After beating Erica, my new legendary egg turned out to be Zapdos, and I have the perfect fusion partner in mind. Because with our new Pokeflute, now we can encounter the giant Snorlax blocking the road. This guy is one of the best fusion partners in the game. Fusing something with Snorlax is basically like asking, what if we took this standard, normal Pokemon and and made it absurdly fat. This leads to some of the funniest fusions in the game. And in the case of our new Zaplax here, this thing is obviously no longer capable of flying. Now we finally had a full team of fusions and began the long journey towards Fuchsia City. There are a lot of battles on this route, which gracefully exposes us to some horrifying fusions, like Psygia, who looks so much more menacing than a regular Scyther. It's also here that I run into Mr. XYS, who absolutely belongs on some kind of government watch list. Eventually though, we make it to Fuchsia City. After entering the Safari Zone to pick up the HM for Surf, we're clear to take on Koga. Although this fight is relatively straightforward, and it doesn't take too much time for us to blast through Koga's poison types on our very first try, granting us another gym badge, as well as another legendary egg, which hatches into Genesect, a Pokemon that is capable of making some incredibly cool looking fusions. So those last two gym fights were both pretty stress-free, and our team had been on cruise control. However, this is where the game would start to become more difficult. Firstly, because our opponents are starting to have larger teams with fully evolved fusions. But on top of that, at the current level cap, our opponents' legendaries are starting to gain access to their deadly signature moves like Roar of Time and Aeroblast. So, as we entered the final half of the game, I expected things to start getting tougher. And that starts in Saffron City, which has now been completely overrun by Team Rocket, all while the police just sit here, leaving this problem entirely in the hands of a 10-year-old who wears a frying pan on his head. There are rocket grunts everywhere, so naturally, I have to take justice into my own hands as we begin our raid on the Sylph HQ. For the most part, this involves battling through a small militia of grunts. None of them are necessarily threatening, but when it comes to their fusions, these guys have some poison type abominations, like Wee Tina, who is somehow both forms of Giratina and a poisonous Weezing. Or we have Mudon, who I don't even know what's happening with this guy's face. But besides these poisonous demons, they also have some really goofy fusions, like Zapdos, who is basically just a fat Zapdos, or Mr. Ooh, who looks like he just farted and is anxiously waiting to see if anyone else realizes. Anyway, after fighting our way through 10 floors of very poisonous and very round fusions, eventually we reach Giovanni, who's holding the Sylph president hostage. Unlike the normal Pokemon games, here we actually team up with our rival to fight Giovanni in a double battle, which sounds exciting. However, this guy is such a liability. Seriously, Blue is just entirely dead weight here. With all these fusions on the screen at once, I know that there's a lot going on here. Just know that our rival has a poisonous Giratina, who is still using Poison Sting for some reason. He basically contributes nothing to this fight, which is a problem, since Giovanni's final two Pokemon are these. Two incredibly powerful fusions who are also a much higher level than me. Our team was being ripped to shreds by these two, and this was looking like a comprehensive loss. However, embarrassingly, despite this fight being a 12 versus 4, we still needed to rely on some crazy paralysis luck just to stop Giovanni's Ray Queen from crushing my entire team. In the end, we just scraped by with the win, no thanks to my rival whatsoever. With Giovanni defeated, he takes 3 Master Balls and flees the scene, meaning that the town was safe from Team Rocket. And as a reward, the company president offers us one of the Johto starters. So I make the only correct choice, taking Chikorita and fusing it with a dumpster, putting Chikorita where it belongs. With Team Rocket forcibly removed, now we're clear to take on the 6th gym. Now, you might expect the Psychic Gym to be full of big-brained, high IQ looking fusions. However, that is not the case. Instead, here we find Pokemon like Hobro, who's just a Slowbro with a fake tan and a wig. Although, after making it to Sabrina, her team is far more threatening. Despite our Zaplax being able to quickly handle her lead Rhyme, Sabrina then follows up with Rayquaza, a psychic dragon who is as deadly as you think it is. A Dragon Pulse decimates our Zaplax, evening the fight to a 3-on-3. Thankfully though, our Kyo Trio knows Ice Beam, which hits Rayquaza hard. This forces Sabrina to switch out into her Espeta, who our Kyo trio can quickly handle with Origin Pulse. After that, the deadly Rayquaza re-emerges and gets the trade, evening up the fight back to a 2-on-2. Once again though, Kuno comes to our rescue. It has a great matchup here, and can outlast Rayquaza by just spamming super effective Draining Kisses. This leaves Sabrina with only her Alicelia, who hits really hard. But from here, Kuno gets it weak, before our final Pokemon, Musard, finishes the fight with one last swip. With that, Sabrina was defeated and we had gotten our 6th badge, largely thanks to our reliable duo of Kyo Trio and Kuno. With another gym badge comes another legendary egg, and this time we pulled Entei, a Pokemon who is capable of some very goofy fusions, but also some really cool ones too. So at this point, I decided to mix up our team a little bit so that we can try out some different fusion combinations. I still kept Kyo Trio since our 3-headed Sea Captain is basically our hard carry. And in the case of our starter, I just flipped the fusion around, giving us Chardub, a fire psychic type who I think looks even cooler than before. Besides those two, the rest of my team is now made up of entirely new fusions, starting with Genesect and Omastar, which combine to make Omasect, a parasitic-looking Genesect that now has the awesome ability Swift Swim. Next, by taking the Lapras that we were given inside Sylph HQ, we can fuse it with Celebi to create Lappy. It doesn't look very intimidating, but Lappy is a tanky water grass Pokemon that is entirely immune to critical hits. Following that, the combination of Clefable and Cresselia gives us the all-new Clefcelia, whose job is basically just to be a tanky fairy type. On top of those, our final new fusion is probably one of my favorites, because by combining our new Entei with Jolteon, we create Jolte. And while this thing might just look like a Temu homemade Raikou, it's a very deadly Pokemon. With high speed and access to both Eruption and Thunder, Jolte is an offensive powerhouse. So, to summarize, our team had now gotten a fresh new update, and these are the legendary fusions we'd be using to try and take down the final 2 gyms. To reach the next town, first, we have to head back to Pallet Town and use Kyo Trio to surf across the ocean to the south. Although, I don't really know how that's supposed to work. Like, do we just stand on its heads? Is that how this works? While traversing the ocean, we do find some truly cursed water types lingering in the deep, but our new Jolte has no problem frying those fish into their graves, meaning that before long, we had arrived on Cinnabar Island. Just like the original Pokemon games, we have to clear through the Pokemon Mansion before we're able to take on the gym. This place is creepy enough as it is, but it gets even creepier once we start finding Pokemon like Zapworld, who has some of the strangest body proportions I've ever seen. And don't even get me started on Magneta. This Pokemon is basically built like a minion. Regardless, after fighting through the horrors of this mansion, eventually we find Blaine lurking in the basement, who then returns to the gym, seemingly lag skipping while on his way out. Now we're clear to take on the 7th gym, and honestly, I wish I could tell you that this was about to be an interesting fight. But Kyo Trio was about to single-handedly turn this place into a crime scene. Blaine does carry some cool fusions, like Charai, who is straight up nightmare fuel that I never want to see ever again. However, with Kyo Trio unleashing some rain-boosted surfs, Blaine's team just does not stand a chance. His first 3 Pokemon are quickly pummeled into the dirt, leaving him with only his ace, Magtu. This thing just looks like a Mewtwo with way too much lip filler. It too is quickly drowned out by Surf, meaning that Kyo Trio had just swept the gym all by itself and earned our penultimate badge in the process. So, Blaine's fire types had been extinguished in very dominant fashion, clearing us to move on from Cinnabar Island. Now, this next part of the game is where the narrative reaches its climax, because by surfing south of Cinnabar, eventually we make it to Mount Ember, where we have our final showdown with Team Rocket. Of course, like every time we face Team Rocket, they have some horrifying fusions, like Girabel here, who looks like a literal gateway straight into the underworld. Once we've fought our way through the onslaught of grunts, we find that Giovanni has now found a way to fuse the 3 legendary birds and plans to use their power to take over the world. Now that I've got 3 legendaries, no one can stop me. I've got 6 legendaries in my pocket right now. Please be gentle. This all culminates in a battle against Giovanni's triple fusion. And while this fight is incredibly tough usually, us having access to legendary fusions makes this far more balanced, as our team gradually works its way through Zap Molcuno without too much trouble. With the bird trio defeated, Team Rocket's plan is put to an end, as Giovanni abandons Team Rocket to return to his gym in Viridian City. And despite the fact that we just beat up Giovanni's birds, this man was about to take yet another L back to back. This final gym fight is a 5-on-5, but just like when we battled Blaine, this is another fight where Kaio Trio has a huge advantage. As such, our Sea Captain wipes out the lead Raitou with only a single serve. Giovanni then follows up with Go Quasar, which looks really awesome and is a big threat. Somehow, it tanks a Surf before putting Kaio Trio on the brink of death with Earthquake. However, after Giovanni finishes draining his full restores, eventually we finish off the Rock Flying Beast. Against the Rhycelia that follows, a Surf gets it so low that the recoil damage from Takedown ultimately results in both of our Pokemon being KO'd at the same time. From here, Giovanni's remaining Pokemon are threatening, but since it's now a 4-on-2, we've got enough firepower to gradually wear through his deadly Ho Trio, as well as the Z-King that follows. With that, our team of legendary fusions had fought through Kanto to obtain all 8 gym badges. We built some serious momentum over the last few gyms, and our team had been dominating. However, our toughest challenge still lies ahead, as next, we'd have to take on the Pokémon League, boasting powerful fusions and some of the deadliest combinations in the entire game. By far, this would be the toughest challenge that our legendary fusions would have to face. But with my ace Sea Captain on board, I was confident in our team. And so, we began the journey towards Victory Road. This is a long path with a lot of trainer battles, and as our opponents are getting stronger, the fusions are becoming more and more wild. Like Startina, who looks like an intergalactic overlord, as well as Necrodos, who looks like he'll grant me a wish if I bring him the Dragon Balls. Seriously, it's like this game has been saving some of its most cursed fusions until now. We've got Unkuno, the biblically accurate Articuno, and possibly the strangest fusion yet, Millisect. Is that a cannon shooting out milk? God, I hope that's milk. As absurd and menacing as these Pokemon are, our team was still holding strong as we gradually made our way towards Victory Road. Once inside, the layout is the same as the OG games, so it doesn't take too long for us to work our way through the boulder puzzles, all while battling some incredibly cool and some incredibly cursed looking fusions. A short time later, we burst out the exit of Victory Road, having arrived at Indigo Plateau. It's here that we would have to take on the Pokémon League. 5 of the hardest battles in the entire game, featuring some of the most menacing legendary fusions yet. I expected this to be the sharpest difficulty spike in the entire game. So before entering, I decided to spend some time experimenting with fusions to try and improve our team with some new legendary combinations. For the most part, I only ended up making absurd combinations like Milkius, the god of milk. It's also at this point that I discovered if you fuse a Moltres and a Psyduck, you just end up with a regular Psyduck that's now on fire. Importantly, with the legendary eggs I collected from our final 2 gyms, first, I was able to hatch a Necrozma. This thing is responsible for some of the coolest fusions in the game. Our final legendary egg was up next, and this one hatches into Arceus, a Pokemon that I've been desperately hoping for. And while I won't be fusing Arceus with God, I will be fusing it with Snorlax, as these two combined create Arclax. It might look like the god of overindulgent calorie intake, but this guy has some insane power. Next, I decided to fuse our Genesect with Aerodactyl, creating Genedactyl, a robot mech version of the ancient fossil that both looks menacing and hits hard. With those 2 new fusions, the rest of our team would be filled out by Kaio Trio, Chartu, Jolte, as well as the return of Clef Kuno. So this would be our squad to take on the final battles of this game. Could these legendary fusions actually overcome the Pokémon League and become champions? Well, let's find out. Our first battle is against Lorelei and her ice types. So Naturally, I lead with our Fire-type starter, Chardub. However, this fight starts horribly, as Lorelei leads with Kyogong, a water-ice type that is incredibly dangerous. Our Chardub is only able to land a pathetic amount of damage before being completely decimated in a single shot by Muddy Water. I need to kill this thing quickly, so send in Jolte and try to finish it off with Discharge, but even that isn't enough before Jolte is instantly crushed by a super effective Origin Pulse. Our Elite Four challenge had started out terribly, and it was only about to get worse. Because while I tried sending in my own Kyogre to finish off Kyogong, Lorelei just uses full restores to heal back up. And since my Kyogre is a part ground type, we're much more vulnerable to water moves than her, meaning that our AC captain is ultimately crushed by Origin Pulse. This stupid seal was ripping my team apart, and it wasn't done yet. My two flying types in the back are both susceptible to Ice Beam, and both are completely crushed. Kyogong was now on the brink of death, but now we're down to only our final Pokemon, while Lorelei still has her entire team. However, that Pokemon is Arclax, our new fusion who has access to one of the most insane move combinations in the game. Thankfully, Arclax is just able to tank a Muddy Water with more than half HP. This allows us to then use Belly Drum. By sacrificing half of our health, Arclax gets to max out its attack stat. This move of Snorlax's is obviously strong, but it becomes completely busted when combined with Arceus's move, Extreme Speed, a priority normal move that hits like a nuke thanks to our maxed out attack. Obviously, this is enough to finish off the weakened Kyogong, and now, thanks to our chunky Overlord, the tide of this battle was about to turn in our favor. The incoming Mamoru is quickly crushed by Body Slam before Lorelei sends in Gintina. As menacing as this thing looks, thankfully it didn't inherit the Ghost type, so an Extreme Speed instantly crushes the Ice Dragon. And from here, our Arclax would continue to dominate, wiping through Lorelei's final two Pokemon with Extreme Speed, pulling off an insanely clutch 1v5. Thank you, Arclax. We are truly not worthy of your power. Our Elite Four challenge was off to a pretty awful start, but thankfully, the following fight against Bruno is much more manageable. He leads with a fighting type Maeda, which our Chardub is just able to overpower with Psychic. And the other Meloetta fusion that follows can also be comfortably handled by Kaio Trio. Bruno also has an Archan, who looks like some sort of intergalactic Power Ranger, as well as Kaio-Champ, which I find very disturbing and never want to see ever again. Ultimately though, this fight is pretty straightforward, as we trade Pokemon back and forth for a pretty simple win over Bruno. Even with a team of legends, this man is still a complete and total pushover. While that fight was pretty simple, this next one is awful. Agatha's team is just a concoction of gross RNG cheese that made this fight incredibly painful. Agatha leads with Mistru, which didn't seem like too much of a threat to begin with. However, then this thing decided to just spam Astonish, and somehow, this move would make me flinch every single time. Seriously, Kaio Trio just got flinched for 3 turns in a row, causing us to lose our strongest Pokemon without landing a single hit. Somehow, Agatha keeps flinching my team. But eventually, once Genidactyl actually gets to attack, a quad-effective Crunch finally takes down the RNG abuser. Although, our problems still aren't over, as Agatha's next Pokemon is Hoter, the Rainbow Ghost. With a Sacred Fire, our Genidactyl is burnt to a crisp, and thanks to Agatha using full restores, she's also somehow able to outlast our Chardub, putting us on the back foot in a 3v4. Thankfully though, Arclax can quickly even the score back to a 3-on-3. And it was at this point that I decided to start using some RNG cheese of my own. Because with Clef Kuno in against the nightmarish Giragar, I just started spamming Ancient Power, hoping to get Omni Boosts. And thankfully, this actually works out as we're able to get multiple boosts, turning our Clef Kuno into a beast. This allows us to just outlast Giragar, before also getting the freeze onto the incoming Melogar. This fight has honestly just been an RNG bloodbath, as Clef Kuno wears down the Frozen Ghost. Agatha's final Pokemon is Gentios, which somehow became a furry during the course of this fusion. Regardless, after 2 freeze dries from our boosted fairy gets it low, Jolte can finish off the nightmare furry with Discharge, giving us the win in what was one of the most disgusting Pokemon battles of all time. With the Wicked Witch of RNG taken care of, this leaves Lance and his dragons as our final battle of the Elite Four. But while this guy does have some really cool dragon fusions, our Clef Kuno is a pretty hard counter to most of his team. It's able to pick up multiple KOs, decimating through the majority of Lance's Pokemon single-handedly. Although Lance's Ace Necronite might be the coolest fusion we've seen in the entire game. This Golden Dragon looks sick, but it's not enough to solo the rest of our team, as Kaio Trio ultimately secures the final KO with a few Ice Beams. With that, the Elite Four had all been defeated, leaving us with only one more opponent. One final hurdle for our legendary fusions to overcome. The champion, Blue, our rival and the very first person to beat us all the way back in Oak's lab. This would be the final showdown between the strongest trainer in the region and a 10-year-old boy with a frying pan on his head. So, with our team of fusions ready, we stepped up to face our toughest fight yet against the Kanto champion. Blue leads with Lugiot as I decide to opt with Jolte. I thought this would be a good matchup, but somehow our first discharge misses, so we're only able to land one attack onto Lugiot before Blue switches out into Tortu, a deadly combination of 2 of the strongest Gen 1 Pokemon. This thing is a monster. It hits so hard, and the champion has so many healing items that this thing is absurdly tough to take down. Its double edges rip through our Genodactyl. Even Clef Kuno can barely lay a scratch on Tortu before it claims another victim with Thrash. At this point, I knew that I would probably get swept if I didn't do something drastic. So I send in my secret weapon, Arclax. Thankfully, due to our Citrus Berry, this big boy can just get off a belly drum before Extreme Speed finally spells the end of the menacing Tortu. The Palkdos that follows is very threatening and lowers our attack with Intimidate, but that's still not enough to stop Arclax from taking it down in a single hit. This is then followed by Lugiot, who suffers the exact same fate on the following turn. So now we were back in the fight. But we have a problem. Due to the ability Pressure being so widespread, our Arclax has now run out of PP for Extreme Speed. And just by looking at this guy, you can tell that he's not very agile. This allows Blue to move first, as Home Mortar finally ends our Arclax's reign of terror. The fight was now evened up to a 3-on-3, but this is where our other ace takes over. With a rain boosted Surf, Kaio Trio is able to weaken Home Mortar, which ultimately forces Blue to switch out, bringing in Starby. This isn't a great matchup for Kaio Trio, so I ultimately switch into Jolte, who is able to take it down thanks to Discharge. Blue responds by sending out his starter, a fully evolved Growlsaur. And while it does finish off our Jolte with a quad effective Precipice Blades, this clears the way for Kaio Trio to hit the field. And from here, our 3-headed legendary was about to go wild, as Surf is able to drown out the opposing Growlsaur before the weakened Home Mortar also suffers the exact same fate on the turn after that. With that, we had conquered the champion Blue and all of Kanto with our legendary fusions. Jump into this video next for more Pokemon content. Let me know in the comments below which legendary fusion was your favorite. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.